Hey, yo, what's good? So, welcome to my day 3 of my Roberto Duran week series where I'm paying tribute to the great Roberto Duran, who was his birthday yesterday, but he deserves a whole week of a tribute. This was inspired by the Fight City, who is doing their own Hands of Stone week, so go check them out. They also did a great feature on the trilogy of Roberto Duran versus Esteban de Jesus, so go check them out. And this video is inspired by that as well. So, de Jesus was Roberto Duran's original foil. Before Sugar Ray Leonard, there was Esteban de Jesus that gave Roberto Duran all kinds of trouble that they had to fight 3 times. The rivalry went from 1972 to 1978, which was their third fight. And let's get into it. Let's talk about the first fight. Before the first fight, Roberto Duran was 31-0 with 27 knockouts, hence Hands of Stone. And Esteban de Jesus was 33-1, only one loss, with 20 knockouts of his own. Duran had just captured the title against Ken Buchanan, and rumors had it that Duran was out partying with the people. You know, he lived a party life. And even worse was before this fight, he got in a car accident which caused a lot of lacerations on his lips and the bum elbow. So he came in with all that. But this was a 10-round title fight, and good thing because Duran didn't look so well in the opening round. De Jesus lands a left hook that decks Roberto Duran for the first time in his career. Duran, this indestructible force who beat up Ken Buchanan, got dropped. And this is when the announcer says, Roberto Duran is down, believe it or not. Believe it or not, Duran, like a fight, you're in a fight. But he said, believe it or not, this man is down. That gives like a sort of to say like, wow, this guy actually was dropped. And after this, Duran really had no answers for De Jesus' footwork, his left hook, his right hand, which he was landing cleanly throughout the fight. Beautiful boxing exhibition by Jesus. I gave Duran 3 rounds, the second, the fifth, and the eighth. The eighth round was Duran's only hope that he hurt De Jesus, but it was not meant to be, man. It was not meant to be. De Jesus won a unanimous decision. This was November 17th, 1972 at the Madison Square Garden, man. Duran had just suffered his first loss. But it would not be the only time he would confront Esteban de Jesus, of course. So after the first fight, they both went on an undefeated streak. Duran went 10-0 with 8 knockouts, and 3 of those fights were title defenses because he kept his title after the first fight because that was a non-title fight. The 3 defenses were by knockout, bringing his record to 41-1 with 35 knockouts. And Esteban de Jesus went 8-0 with 3 knockouts, and that included 2 victories over future Roberto Duran victim Ray Lampkin, and which brought his record to 42-1, which he had a better record than Duran at that time, and a victory over Duran. So this was like a fight that Duran really had to win. This fight, the rematch happened in March 16th, 1974 in Panama City, Panama. So you know who was the favorite, who was the hometown boy. Of course, Roberto Duran. Duran was determined to win this, but what happens in the first round, a repeat of the first fight, of the first round of the first fight. The same punch. It was a left hook to Duran's chin, had him dropped. But in the first fight, he looked kind of weary after the first knockdown, and he never really recovered from it. But this time, you got a Roberto Duran determined and in shape, didn't party, didn't go out late night. He was determined to win this. So he got up and like nothing. He just shook it off. And you could see it. he was not affected at all by the first knockdown of the first round. What did Roberto Duran do? He got up in him. And this is when he started getting up close, started landing beautiful combinations, man. Beautiful. Started hitting him, started dominating him with these combinations, pivoting. It is brutality with Duran, but it's a beautiful brutality. And up until the 6th round, it was a good fight, because you got Esteban de Jesus trying to land that left hook haymaker once again, but he never does. But he lands it again, but it never drops Duran again. It doesn't hurt him again. But you got De Jesus trying to land that big shot and landing hard shots, but Duran is still winning the fight. Is still hitting him with the better shots, pivoting, hitting him with left hooks, with right hooks, with right hands, hard shots to the body too. Up until the 6th round. And then you got the 7th round, where you got Duran who's slightly, I had him slightly winning by 1 point. It was 4 rounds to 2, but with De Jesus' knockdown, it brought Duran barely up by 1 point. So, but in round 7, Duran tried to end this thing right now early, and he was just volume, man. It's volume. Duran didn't stop. Duran in lightweight was an animal. And Duran here, he landed several rights to De Jesus' temple, which drops De Jesus. But props to De Jesus, he gets up and gets right up in Duran, like puts his head right up in his chest and tries to bang it out with him. He survives the round. But man, round 8, Duran want to finish it. He took some big shots, man. I don't know how De Jesus even survived that fight. I mean, even survived that round. That round was brutal. It was brutal. He was taking shots all over the place, and you got Duran like, De Jesus would try to clinch him, but Duran would get his right arm free and just uppercut. That's what fighters need to do when someone clinches them. Uppercut them. It's brutal, man. Duran, a solid fighter, but so was De Jesus for hanging in there. Rounds 9 and 10 were about the same thing, but in round 11, Duran just went in like, why is this fool here? Why is this fool still here? He went up and finished it with like 30 seconds into the 11th round. Like, he went into that round knowing that it was over, like that he was gonna finish it, and he did. He dropped him with the accumulation of punches, and I could imagine that Jesus just being exhausted, and he did not get up. And Duran had successfully defended his title for the 4th time, but more importantly, he redeemed his first loss against his greatest rival at that time. So Duran wins the rematch. Of course, it couldn't end at 2 fights, right? Especially when Esteban de Jesus captured the WBC title from Guts Ismatsu, who Duran had beaten, but he captured the WBC lightweight title, right? The following year after the rematch. So that wasn't his only opportunity at the title. That was his 3rd opportunity. The first one, of course, had been the rematch with Roberto Duran. The second one had come like 2 months after. Had come a year after he lost to Duran in the rematch, and the 3rd title shot came. He lost against Antonio Cervantes, but that was for the WBA World Super Lightweight. So that was at 140. So he moved up divisions for the opportunity to fight for the championship at 140. Fortunately, he lost, but he had another shot the following year against Guts Ishimatsu, and he won that shot. So Duran, of course, He wanted to unify that title, and at that time, that fight would be for the undisputed lightweight championship. So following the rematch, Roberto Duran was 20-0 with 15 knockouts. He had made 7 title defenses with 6 knockouts. The only man to go the distance was Edwin Virtue in his title defenses. Esteban de Jesus had gone 10-0 with 1 loss to Antonio Cervantes at 140. But he won the title, like I've said a few times already. So that brought the records to 62-1 with 51 knockouts for Roberto Duran and 52-2 for Esteban de Jesus. This fight took place in January 28th, 1978 at Caesar's Palace. And this fight I think it was Duran's best performance of the trilogy, because I think he easily won. I know Esteban de Jesus lasted 1 round more because it went 12 rounds. But I think this is easily Duran's best performance because he boxed his ears off and he did not get dropped. He knew Esteban de Jesus' power was there. He knew he was a good puncher. He knew how to box. He knew how to move. He was a good fighter. So what does Duran do? He doesn't go ahead and throw a million punches, volume punches, from the beginning. He jabs. He jabs and he jabs and he jabs and he moves. Throws that right hand occasionally. The first 6 rounds was a beautiful display of boxing. And these rounds were almost identical. I kid you not. I was watching the first round and I was like, damn, this round is really long. And then it came the 32nd round. I was like, okay, all right. And then the round ended. It was the end of round 3. The end of round 3. That's how identical those rounds were, because Duran was giving such a good display of his boxing ability in those rounds. Esteban de Jesus really had no answer. I think that might have surprised him how good Duran boxed, because he hadn't done that to that effectiveness in his first 2 fights. Of course, he had felt his power. Of course, he knew he was a hell of a fighter, but he couldn't touch him, really. I only gave de Jesus 2 rounds. Then you had, after the 6th round, you got Duran pressuring more. He started landing more shots, more right hands. Solid right hands, of course. Duran, the solid right hands. And it's not like Esteban de Jesus didn't do jack. But as the announcer said in the second fight, it's like, I know Esteban de Jesus, he's throwing good punches, just that they're really insignificant compared to what Duran throws, because he's just so effective. And that's this fight once again. It was still a good fight, but Duran, I think Duran completely dominated. He dropped him in round 12 with a hard, of course, what else? A hard right hand, a hell of a right hand. I don't know how I know how he got up. This is like one of the most funniest thing I've seen, and the craziest thing, a visual in the ring. He gets cracked by a right hand. He lands on his knees. He gets up on his knees and he starts to crawl. He's like in the middle of the ring. He starts to crawl into the ropes to get up. I have never seen that before. Esteban de Jesus crawled. Duran made a grown-ass man crawl on the ground. That's just, it's amazing to me. That is wow. It's a wow moment, because I've seen that in his highlights, but I had never seen the fight that it happened in, of course. So de Jesus gets up and Duran finishes him with a bunch of punches, punches and bunches, how they say. Haymakers, right hooks, jabs, um, left hooks, shots to the body. So Duran gets his victory. He wins the fight series, the trilogy, with his hardest and best rival at that time. These don't get it twisted. These guys were the best lightweights of that time. They were the best lightweights fighting each other in a hell of a trilogy that had Duran win 2 out of 3. 2 of them by knockout, of course, at that time. So Duran celebrates. He won the triumphant trilogy at Caesar's Palace, which brought his record to 63-1 with 52 knockouts. Now Duran was the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. No other man at lightweight could beat him or had beaten him. He already beat his rival that was the only man that beat him twice. He proved he was the better man. So he had nothing left to prove at lightweight, and this was his final title defense at lightweight. Next year he would announce that he was officially going to move up to welterweight, and that's when he fought Carlos Palomino. And we know about his historic run. After Palomino, he beat Sugar Ray Leonard. Then, of course, the No Mas fight, and the rest is history, right? Esteban de Jesus is a lot more tragic. Esteban de Jesus, he fought a few more times after the loss against Duran in the third fight. Most notably in July 7th, 1980, he lost the title fight against 140-pound champion Saul Mambi, which that was his last fight in 1980. What happened after, man, he started to get addicted to drugs, cocaine, heroin, and he ended up killing a man. Murder. They sent him to life in prison. And in prison, in 1985, he shared I don't know if he shared a cell, but he was in prison with his brother. But his brother died of AIDS in 1985, and soon he was diagnosed with AIDS because he shared needles with his brother. So he now had AIDS, and he was serving life in prison. It turned out that they had a little bit of mercy on his life, and they let him go home for house arrest to serve the rest of his sentence. So with his family and friends, so they could visit him, because they knew he didn't have long on this earth. And this picture right here is someday in April in 1989. Duran visits the very sick and about to die Esteban de Jesus. He visits his arch rival. He embraces him, he kisses him, and lets his daughter embrace him and kiss him. Even though at that time AIDS was very stigmatized and people were afraid of people with AIDS. They thought they were monsters. Might as well. But Duran embraced his old rival, because proving that that's just that kind of man he is, because that's what Esteban de Jesus needed the most. Support and help from friends and family and loved ones. And that's what he got from Duran, at least that day. Proving that they had respect for each other because of what they went through. 3 grueling fights. 23 grueling rounds with each other. No, 33. 33 grueling rounds, man. How many knockdowns? 6 knockdowns. 2 were of Duran, 4 were of De Jesus. But these guys made history together. They had one of the best lightweight rivalries of all time. So here comes the respect and the embrace. Shortly after, Esteban de Jesus dies in May 12th of 1989 due to AIDS. So this was, he visited him like a month before he died. Man. But what they shared, none of us could take away. So rest in peace, Esteban de Jesus. And we celebrate your life and your career, especially now because you made history with one of the greatest fighters of all time. You gave one of the greatest fighters of all time his first defeat and his first visit to the canvas. So we salute you for that. And thank you for those 3 great fights that you gave us. The great trilogy that it was Roberto Duran versus Esteban de Jesus. Thanks for watching, everybody. Shoutouts to the Fight City for the great article. I will put it in the description. They visit this rivalry in details, in great detail. So thanks for watching. Look forward to my next videos on Roberto Duran week. We still have a few more days. I look forward to watching the rest of his great fights. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace.